it is an honor, when you receive recognition like this. I'm just a guy who shows up on the radio every day and kind of spits out what's on my mind. And to be recognized for that is awfully nice. So thank you. And it's great to be here. I consider all of you in this battle in which we're facing today freedom fighters in a different sense of the word. Now, Pat has heard this many a times, and I always love, Glenn used to start his show and would always say, "Hello, all you sick, twisted freaks." Remember that, Pat? Well, all of you are sick and twisted freaks, but let me explain that a little bit if I could. You're primarily, by the way, before I even get started with this, I want to make sure you aren't burning your wood stove today and ruining our environment. Would you make sure you aren't doing that? Please, those wood stoves, my gosh, 5%, holy Toledo. But let me explain why I think you're a bunch of sick, twisted freaks. You're sick because you believe in the traditional, wonderful values that have made this country great. Now, the lamestream media and society in general may think that you're sick to believe in that, but I certainly do not. So I compliment you for standing up for what you believe in. I have worked in the media in this market for nearly 30 years now, other than a short stint up in that city, which I used to call San Francisco Light, otherwise known as Seattle. And I have sat in all kinds of newsrooms with different news people, and I've always found it interesting in those new rooms as they have their morning planning meetings. I wonder what the Eagle Forum says about this issue. They always snicker and giggle and laugh a little bit, usually at Gail's expense. She well knows that over the years. But I always found it interesting in these newsrooms that everybody wanted to know what the Eagle Forum had to say. They wanted to hear your opinion. They wanted to know what you believed in and what you had to say. Now, despite the fact that you oftentimes, I think, are ridiculed unfairly and unjustly, you stand up for what you believe in. And I tell you what, that is something that you truly have to admire. And you are a voice that cannot and should never be ignored. So if people encourage you and say, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about," yes, you do. And I would encourage you, don't be afraid to get involved and to stand up, because what you talk about is extremely important to the foundation and the basis of this country. So I encourage you, please don't shut up if you're asked to. I want to share with you today just a few of my thoughts about what's going on in the country today and my perception of what I think is happening. First of all, weren't you all elated yesterday when the Supremes decided to take up the issue of gay marriage? Yes, very much so. I think in many ways we were disappointed last October when the court refused to consider several cases, including the case here in Utah. Well, the court said we need judicial conflict. Well, they now have judicial conflict because an appeals court in the Midwest, the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, has decided to uphold the ban on traditional marriage. Now they have conflict in the court, and they are going to take up this issue. I have always felt, and I've said this on my show before, you may have heard me say it, those of you who listen, that America is a country of fairness. That is what all we ask for in this country. Well, we may not agree with certain issues. We may not agree with what some people say. We understand that if we are allowed to be heard, that we have been treated fairly. And that's what I think the Supreme Court did not give us an opportunity to do in October, but now we do have that opportunity. We want our voice to be heard, and we will have a chance to do so in April. The arguments will probably come in the last week of April. I would hope and pray, I doubt this will happen, but they are going to open up these proceedings to at least audio broadcast of it. They did during the health care debate. They may, during the debate over same-sex marriage, but I hope and pray that they will make the right decision, and that decision will probably come on the final day of the court session in June. So that is certainly, definitely something to watch out about. Think about this for a minute, because this is an argument that we've made in this state. You all know the story about the legalization of marijuana in Colorado. You've all heard that story. That law was changed because of what? A vote of the people. That's how that law was changed. As a matter of fact, I think it was close to 60% of that voters approved the legalization of the recreational use of marijuana, despite the fact that marijuana is still considered by the federal government illegal in this country today. But the voters approved it. Now, think about this for a minute. What if, in fact, someone in the state of Colorado decided to challenge the legalization of marijuana based on the fact that a federal law said pot is illegal? And what if a judge accepted that challenge and ruled that they can't smoke pot and marijuana? And the judge said, it's a vote of the people. Therefore, the law is no longer valid. Isn't that the issue that we have here in the state of Utah in many respects? We approved Amendment 3 by nearly, I think, more than a 2-to-1 margin, as I recall. It is a vote of the people. We do not hold anything against gay people. What we hold in favor is traditional marriage, and that's what we voted for, and that's the definition of what traditional marriage is all about. How do you think the people of Colorado would feel if their pot law was overturned? Interesting, isn't it? I am also concerned, and I've got to keep on time or Gail will shoot a rubber band at me. I am also concerned about, I think, what we would easily call present-day do-gooders in America today. And let me explain. How many of you have heard the story, it just came out, I think it was yesterday or the day before, about the couple in Maryland who are now being accused of child neglect because they allowed their children to walk home by themselves? It's an amazing story. The couple lives in Maryland, not far from Washington, both working parents, very bright. I think one is a nuclear physicist, the other one may be, she's involved in the legal profession, I think, or a teacher. And she's trying to teach her children about independence and responsibility. They have 2 children, 10 years old and 6 years old. They would let as their children got older, they would let them drift a little bit farther away from home by themselves. Maybe go to the nearby library, or maybe around the corner to get, some milk for mom. And to help their children, like I said, to help their kids, they even provided them with laminated cards so that if they got lost or someone asked them who they were, they could say, my name is this, my parents are this, you can call them, I'm lost, could you help me out? So they really were responsible parents. Well, on December 20th, they allowed their children, again, 10 and 6 years old, to walk home from a park that is 1 mile away from their home. They never got home. Why? Because a police officer came up to them and asked them where their parents were and if he could take them home. The police officer told the parents that they were neglecting their children and that he would have to call in Child Protective Services. Can you believe that? Child Protective Services was called in to investigate, warned the parents not to do this. As a matter of fact, this happened right before the holiday break. After the kids were back in school, Child Protective Services came to their school without their parents' knowledge and asked the children about how their parents take care of them. Okay? It's a pretty amazing story. Now, these parents, unfortunately, describe themselves as free-range parents. Have you ever had free-range chicken at a restaurant? I mean, think about this, right? Free-range parents. And those parents said, look, we have a right to raise our children the way we want to raise our children. It's time for society, I think again, to catch up with what parents want. We don't want helicopter parents. We want parents who are responsible, who are willing to talk to their children and teach their children what it's like and in preparation for an adult. What is the old saying? The best way for a father to show his children that he loves them is to love their mother. But you have an encroaching society that wants to tell you how to be parents. You have an encroaching society that wants to tell you how to heat your home, what you can feed your children at school, what they can watch, what they can wear. For crying out loud, when is it going to stop? And that's why you need to speak up. I want to say one other note, because I know I'm running out of time. I want to talk about the importance of family again. You have all heard the statistics. The growing number of children born into this country each and every day without a mother and father in the home. Single parenting. It is scary. For the African American community, it's upwards of 70%. For the Hispanic community, around 55%. And for white Americans, it is rapidly getting near 40%. A study released just the other day that showed that cohabitation is at its highest level in this country than it ever has been. Frightening statistics. We continue to have a discussion about solutions, and oftentimes that solution focuses on young women. I ask you today, in your fight for family, please do not forget about young men and what they need to do. Mitch Pearlstein, he was on my show, has written a fascinating book called Broken Bonds, The Fragmentation of the American Family. He talked about economics and laws to improve the marriage status in this country today, but he also said one thing, and he pleaded with all of us, do not forget about the young men. What are we doing in this country today? What are we doing in our families to make our young men attracted and attractive to young women? Are they getting the proper education? Are they ready to support a family with a good job? Are we teaching them that? Let us not forget, are we pulling them out of the basement and away from those darn video games and teaching them certain things, like to pull their pants up and how to wear a baseball cap? I tell you what, my mother was a real stickler for chivalry. She taught me to open the door for a woman, to walk on the right side of the street for a woman, to hold my wife's hands. She also taught me how to socialize. And if we can teach our young men one thing, it's how to socialize, not only among the guys, but with young women as well. You know, if you look at the history of men communicate by grunting. Yeah, sure. You know, women, nothing against you ladies, but you like to talk. I get it. You know, teach your young men how to listen. How to listen to, you know, we're men, it's just built into us. We have answers like that. Have you ever gone to your husbands, ladies, and said, I've got a problem. Can you talk to me a little bit? And instantly the husband said, oh, here's how you fix it. No. They don't want a solution. They just want to be heard. Teach our young men that. Teach our young men those values. You know, like I said, it is the best way to show children and to raise a great family is to love their mothers. Thank you for this today. Thank you for standing up for what you believe in. Don't be afraid, and do not shirk your duty. People like me in the broadcast industry, conservative talk radio, are depending on your help. Thank you again for this recognition, and have a great convention.